Welcome to the Art Studio with your host Valerie Ashton. The Art Studio keeps you in the know about artists and art and is your source for information about shows and tours in Richard Stouffville.
Today I'm talking with Elaine Keane. Now Elaine's not an artist, but she came to me with a few questions because she's interested in art. So I thought today we'd get Elaine to ask the questions and I'd try and answer them. Hi Elaine.
Val. Yes, I do have a few questions. Sometimes when I've been out, either restaurants or shops or art galleries, I have noticed, I'm looking at some of the artists' work, that there are different initials, like behind the artist's name. And I've always kind of wondered, what do some of these initials stand for? What do they mean?
Well, actually, there's a lot of designations that artists can get. A couple of basics would be if they went to school specifically to study fine art. So you could have a BFA, which is a Bachelor of Fine Arts. You could have a MFA, a Master of Fine Arts. Very few, I think, get a PhD in fine arts, but it's possible. Then there's also the individual organizations will often have designations. So there is the Toronto Society of Watercolor Artists. So they could have a designation. Personally, I have OSA, which means the Ontario Society of Artists, and I have a PAC, which is a Pastel Artists of Canada. Now, to get the actual designations behind your name, the artist will have to qualify. How you qualify would be determined by the individual groups. For the Ontario Society of Artists, which is actually one of the hardest to get, you have to be juried in twice. So you have to submit art. It has to pass through a committee. If you're accepted in that, the whole membership has to then decide whether or not you will be accepted into the Ontario Society of Artists. So that one's a little tough. The Pastel Artists of Canada, to get a PAC designation, you need to be in a juried show put on by Pastel Artists of Canada. You have to be accepted into at least 3 juried shows. So to get that designation actually can take several years.
Sounds like a very in-depth process. Now, I've also noticed that when some artists have their work on display, they may only have their name beside their painting. Does that mean that they do not have any of these designations?
Chances are it does. Usually if you have the designation, you want to use it.
Okay.
You want people to see that, yes, you have got that recognition. Some people find that important. It's not necessary, and not all artists will want to get it. Personally, I think it helps a bit. It helps in allowing the public to know that there is something to this artist. They are working at their art. They are trying to improve their art. They're trying to make sure that the public knows that they have a reputation that is accepted.
Where are some of the venues where you could go to actually purchase art?
That's the good thing about art. You can find it anywhere. A lot of it would depend on what you want to pay. Often private galleries, the prices do tend to be a little higher because the gallery will take a commission. Studio tours are actually a really, really good place to go look for art because you get such a variety of artists. When artists apply to be part of the Stouffville Studio Tour, a committee will actually go out to the artist venue, to their studio, and check out their art and decide whether they are of a high enough quality to be part of the tour. And I know that a lot of the studio tours do that. So that actually is a good venue. Even restaurants, people might think, the artist is hanging their art in a restaurant. Maybe they're not very good. But artists want their art to be seen. So restaurants are actually a pretty good venue.
Sometimes, you can be looking at different paintings, different pieces, and it's like, oh wow, I love it. I've just fallen in love with it. I really like this piece. Now, how do I know if it's good quality? How do I find out more about the reputation of the artist?
Okay, well, first of all, if you love it, that's the main thing. If it says something to you, that's good art. If you love it, but you're still a little weary, check out the artist. And all artists will give you their, called a CV, curriculum vitae, which is basically their resume. And on that, you can see what shows they've been in, what education they've had, anything that's related to their art will be there. And all artists will give you that.
Looking at the prices, obviously there's all different price ranges, and how do you sort of determine, is this a fair price?
That's a tough one. Even artists have a hard time with that. It's a very personal thing. You put a lot of yourself into the art, and it's really hard then to put a price on that. Obviously, you want to be fair, but you have a little bit of emotional attachment to it, so it is tough. Personally, what determines the price of my art is the fact that I've been doing this for a while. I do have a lot of awards behind my name. I do have several designations, and I am in private galleries, and I cannot sell my art for less than they sell in a gallery because that's just not fair. It's not fair to the gallery. I can't underprice them. So that determines how I price my art.
Looking at different types of paintings, oil paintings, pastels, sketches, or watercolors, do they sort of influence or make a difference to the pricing?
They shouldn't. I've noticed that some people think oil paintings are worth more. I'm assuming it's because the old masters painted in oils, so people think, oh, well, those are worth a lot of money, so it must be the oil paint. Well, they painted in oils because that's all they had. I've heard people think that watercolor should be cheaper than oil paint. And I've never understood it because actually watercolor is one of the hardest mediums to work with. So if you were working it that way, watercolor should be more expensive. But really what determines the value of the painting is the artist and the skill of the artist, and whatever medium they're working in really doesn't matter. It's whether they actually know how to use that medium. They are skilled at using that medium. And many artists will work in different mediums.
What is your opinion about buying art on the internet?